Africa. Wake up, Africa, your time has come. Open up your eyes and see the sun. Open up your spirit.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Hey family, how you doing? How's everything going? I pray that you are well and, happy Sabbath. Now we interrupt our, regular programming to bring you an important message and to remember a fallen African hero. He called himself the King of Kings of Africa. I think that was just, overreaching, but he was trying to do something and he was trying to save Africa and lift Africa out of its current predicament. And because of that, they took him out. I'm talking about Gaddafi. Now, 7 years today, on October 20th, 2011, Gaddafi was brutally murdered, brutally beaten, and killed by what they called the National Transition Council. Now, the National Transition, which was basically a band of, his own people, but what they had tried, sponsored by the UK, France, and they tried to say that he had died from injuries, but actually he was found in a sewer pipe, and they pulled him out, beat him, basically especially on his private parts, and then they sodomized him with a bayonet. Absolutely, the evil of these people is absolutely ridiculous. And we just want to bring to memory, recall to the collective memory of the African people that we have no friends, and that every single time someone tries to come out and speak against the oppression and suppression of our people and tries to come out and liberate our people, they also always take him out. And it's genocide, murder, and especially if we look at what's happening in Libya today. Now, by the way, thanks for subscribing, everybody. Thanks for following the show. Shout out to Phil for the Black Panther shirt. It could have come at a better time. My only regret is I don't have an afro to match. But we must remember, why was Gaddafi killed? Why was he killed? Because he was not killed for humanitarian purposes. He was killed because of oil and money, because they wanted to get to the 144 tons of gold that he had, and he was threatening the global order. Now, in March of 2011, the Brits and the French launched a bombing attack on Libya after he had, after a small, a small kind of fight in Libya. And what happened actually is, before that, the foreign powers, because it's been shown that, a lot of these foreign governments, a lot of the former colonizers are behind ISIS, they're behind Al-Qaeda, they're behind all these Boko Harams and everything. These guys don't just come and, they're not just rebels out there. They are funded and implanted in nations by these Western powers. And so what happened is, the Brits and the French in March, they started bombing Libya, trying to get Gaddafi out, saying that he was a threat to his people. After he was a dictator for 42 years, that's a bit much, but he's saying he was a threat to his people, and they started bombing Libya out of control. Now, in August, they finally managed to remove him, and then in October, this day, 7 years ago, they sodomized and killed him. And you know what? There is so much proof that has emerged that shows that he was killed for oil and money. In fact, there was some WikiLeaks that came out, and they leaked Hillary Clinton's emails when she was Secretary of State. And it showed that an email sent to Clinton by Sidney Blumenthal in April 2nd, 2012, where Sidney talked about the threat that Gaddafi caused to the global corporate order, to the globalists, because he had started speaking out very strongly about having an African currency. And what he was proposing is to have an African gold dinar that was backed by gold. And he was not only calling on Africans to join, but also on the Muslim world to join. And what they were saying is that they would only be selling oil and other minerals or through the gold currency. Now we know that the US, we are under a fake paper currency that has no value. It's just a piece of paper. It has no gold value. Those gold reserves in the, Federal Reserve are non-existent, really. And, if you want, there's so much evidence that shows that they premeditated the death of Gaddafi, because in April 2011, 6 months before his death, the World Bank president, Robert Zoellick, they had only just started bombing Libya, the Brits and the French. And Robert Zoellick said in a panel discussion that he hoped his institution would have a role in rebuilding Libya. Libya hadn't even fallen then. And at that time, when the World Bank wanted to come in, the Libya Central Bank was 100% state-owned. And let me tell you, only 3 or 4 nations are actually 100% state-owned. Iraq was one of them. Libya is one of them. Syria, I think, was one of them, or was trying to go back into that. And North Korea. So you can see how this globalist system is so against us. And, not only at the time, not only was Libya's central bank 100% state-owned, but it had approximately 144 tons of gold in its vaults, as well as a similar amount in silver. Now, when we come back, I'll be telling you why Cameron, Sarkozy, and Obama are solely responsible for the death of Gaddafi. We'll be right back.
Wake up, Africa!
Hey family, how's everything going? How you doing? I'm coming to America for Thanksgiving. Hey, coming to America. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you'd like to fly me out to your city to have a conversation with you, your community, go ahead and reach out to my organizing person, my PR person. His name is Kellen. You can reach him at Kellen@ColemanPRFirm.com. I look forward to seeing a few of you out there.
Wake up, Africa!
Welcome back to a special edition of the Dr. Mumbi Show, where we are remembering the Gaddafi, and trying to reignite his dream prophetically of having a single African currency that would be backed by gold. And, he was advocating for this currency. And he said that this currency would not only rival the dollar, but it would also rival the euro. And basically, there's something I need to share about, here it is. Now, he had called for African and Muslim nations to join an alliance, and he had wanted to call the currency the gold dinar. Now, the G8 countries, the World Bank and the IMF, as well as the multinational corporations, don't take lightly to leaders who try and get rid of, the petrodollar. They never take lightly. And that's why we also saw Saddam Hussein getting taken out in a similar fashion, because he had also started to voice the same ideas that Gaddafi had of, Iraq now having their own currency, getting rid of the petrodollar, etc., and having it listed under the Iraqi currency, and they took him out. And we must realize that the World Bank and the IMF, they're not global banks. They're actually American corporate banks. And the United States has 16% of the revenue, 7% belongs to Japan, and 6% to the United Kingdom, 4.5% to China, and 4% to Germany. And the US president also selects the World Bank president. So for all you guys who reach out to me and say, Trump is here to fight the globalists, let's see him appoint a new World Bank chief that will bring down this huge, global mafia. So another thing that is important to, you guys should read John Perkins. I've talked so much about his book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, but he also has a really good book called The Secret History of the American Empire. And in it, he talks about how an empire is a nation that documents, that dominates other nations by imposing its own currency on them. And he talks about how empires always either collapse or they get overthrown. We remember the ancient Romans, that was an empire. The Spanish did the same. The Brits did the same, where they imposed their culture and they imposed a currency on all the nations that they controlled, and basically created their own global order, but they never survived long. And we're seeing a huge collapse of the current global order. If you're not seeing it. So now, just a few final points. You know, Libyans actually miss Gaddafi. And in the last 7 years, we've seen Libya go through 7 governments. That's almost a government a year. They've had 5-fold increase in the cost of food. You know, before, Libyans all used to get a salary from the oil and they all used to live, you know, they weren't balling out of control, but they were living comfortable. Now the slave trade is back. ISIS actually controls the city, still controls the city where Gaddafi was from and where he was killed. The West was so eager to bomb Libya, but they totally aborted the rebuilding mission, which is that's just how they operate, which is just sick, you know. And 8,000 African immigrants cross the border into Libya every day in the hopes of crossing the Mediterranean to go to Europe. And you know what this is doing? It's triggered a huge underground slave trade. It's triggered a huge organs trafficking. Libya is now one of the biggest hubs for organ harvesting, illegal organ harvesting. And the genocide that is going on of African young men and women is absolutely atrocious. Now, just to mention, as I wind up, the United Kingdom's House of Commons actually came out with a very scathing report against Cameron, and they said it was a mistake to go into Libya, and Cameron acted erroneously on erroneous assumptions, because what Cameron had claimed is that there was an attack. They always go into this fake news. Oh my God, Libyans are in danger. You know, Gaddafi's going to kill his own people. There's going to be a genocide. Let's take him out. Fake, 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 because Cameron was part of the Brotherhood. So was Sarkozy. And get this, Obama actually admitted that Libya was the worst mistake of his presidency. Not so much because they took Gaddafi out, but because they didn't have a plan for what they would do after Gaddafi. But you know what? They were just following orders. They were just following orders from the powers that be. But this should be, you know, as we remember Gaddafi today, as we remember his vision of, you know, a liberated and powerful superpower African nation, let's also remember to stand with our leaders, to stand with our revolutionaries. I'm so encouraged by everyone who reaches out to me saying they want to financially support Malema. They want to physically, you know, they're even like, can we go to South Africa and join his army? I don't know if he has an army, guys. But, you know, it's amazing. And we must remember to stand by those who are standing with us, because for far too long, we've allowed our revolutionaries, our leaders, our freedom fighters, and our liberators to be taken out by this global cabal. And we must say enough is enough. My prayer today is that the dream of that Gaddafi had of a one African currency and a powerful superpower African continent will become a reality within our lifetime. May his soul rest in power. Mwah.
Wake up, Africa!